China decided to start using its manufacturing capacity to not just be the manufacturing hub of the world, but also a manufacturer with a nose, always spying on others, trying to find out what others are doing. And these Chinese nationals cannot operate freely in any other country. They have this chain that keeps them back.
So the entire supply chain is well knit and supported by the CCP.
Backend, and they also make sure that none of them stray. I think 10 to 12 years ago, there was one person who defected from Hong Kong to China. So that person, when he defected to the PRC, China, he carried with him information about all the CIA agents that were operating within the mainland China. So this is where the first big thing started. China has been pushing a lot of chemical drugs like meth or fentanyl into the United States through Canada and Mexico. And this has become a huge problem today.
Nuisance for them.
Huge problem. Russia has been caught in a bit of a problem. They are not growing fast enough. They have a large landmass to support, protect. They have a lot of Islamic Republic, Chechnya for example, where there's a lot of anti-Russia feeling. And they also have problem that on the West, Russia felt when USSR broke up, right? United States did a couple of things. They did very smartly. They made sure that no nuclear weapons fell in a rogue country's hands, including Ukraine. So what the United States did was, they told Russia, look, you sign an agreement with Ukraine that you will never invade Ukraine, and in exchange for that, Ukraine is going to give you all its nuclear assets. And that happened. But yet, Russia broke its word. It's very difficult to decode who is fighting for whom and who is fighting against who is funding whom. All these things are up, it's very, very confusing.
Would that mean Akhand Bharat could come into being?
No.
Never.
It will not. And in fact, it's not good. The Indian Muslim and the Indian Christian say, I am proud to be a Bharatiya. See, there are only two types of Hindus in Bharat. Those who are Hindus and those who were Hindus. India was very sharp up until the re-election of Sheikh Hasina. Once she got elected, I think India took its foot off of the pedal a little bit, saying that now that she has come back,
she would take care of
5
things,
years, she'll take care of it. 4 or 5 weeks before the actual deposition, that is, she got thrown out, it was believed that 6 people from her inner circle were transferring a lot of money into Dubai. Why would they do that? In Bangladesh, what I'm hearing is that Trump is going to tell Modi, you do whatever you want to do with Bangladesh, I just want St. Martin's Island.
Vanakkam and welcome to 𝗟𝗡𝗏. Out here in 𝗟𝗡𝗏, we are trying to explore something completely new, unheard of. Certain facets of international relations remain a secret to common audience. So I was actually intrigued by one of the monologues of Sree Iyer, who has joined us. He's here from the US, he's come from US, he's joined us in our studio. So one episode of his where he says that the war has already started, which means the Third World War has already started, just not in the way you would conventionally perceive a war to be. There are different dimensions to it, so it's very interesting to know, and as common citizens, we need to be abreast with those informations. So welcome once again, Sree Iyerji, for this podcast of ours.
Thank you so much, Karthik. And
do shed some light on these things. The war has already started. China has, drawn the first blood. It has attacked the information technology systems. Just, enlighten our audience about how this is happening.
Yeah. So normally when we think of a war, right, you think that there are troops on the ground, cannons going off, or rockets flying, or tanks moving around and all that. This time it is slightly different, and the war has actually started in information technology, in my opinion. And this is something that is of concern because this has already been waged in India. So I'll come to that. Ask me after I tell you what is happening between US and China. So how China has essentially tried something similar in India also. So we'll come to that in just a minute. So what has happened now is that United States, to its horror, is finding out that 9 of its telecom companies, see, telecom companies touch all our lives. How? They are the back end, That is where all your cell phone calls go through. They are also in your internet. If you do any video editing, social media posting, that also goes through there. And they're on landline. I mean, they are catching you any which way you can. So they are really able to get in to know what is going on in all these telecom companies, which means our not so private lives have become even less private. So where this thing becomes horrible is when they go after sensitive topics, sensitive departments, and try to unearth information that could really damage the country's security. That is what has happened now.
But how are they able to do this? I mean, what has given them the ability to go into the private lives of people? Is it because they have the components, major components of the telecom system, or is there some other jugaad that they have worked out to find all these things out?
Well, a little bit of everything. So first thing is that China has almost always, whenever it has sold an infrastructure, Huawei, for example, ZTE, for example, whenever they have sold these equipment, they always have a call home feature. Meaning that once in a while, this equipment will go and dial back one IP address in China and say, look, this is what happened. Or it could give the digest of what it finds interesting. So this communication is happening all the time. This was unearthed, I think 6 or 7 years ago in Amazon Web Services, Amazon, where they found out, because Amazon was the one that hosts the web for many companies, hundreds of companies. Now, what the allegation there has been, there was a company called Supermicro, which makes servers. Servers are what are the building blocks of cloud. Let me not go too far into it. So essentially, that's where they hacked it. And they could get any company that was having its website on Amazon, they could get all the data about it. So whatever IP you may have, whatever secret sauce that you may have, everything was being leaked to China. That was caught and then they rectified it. But now we are seeing that China has done the same thing at a much bigger level. So there's a hacker group that has been named by Microsoft saying that this is the hacker group that has done it. Viewers can take a look at my video in PGurus to understand.
We will post a link here in the description for you to have a look at it.
Yeah. So this is not the first salvo, by the way. Something happened before this also. So you have one, I do something, I react this way, and then I counter-react this way, another reaction, and so on.
So where did the battle start?
The battle started, in my opinion, when China decided to start using its manufacturing capacity to not just be the manufacturing hub of the world, but also a manufacturer with a nose, always spying on others, trying to find out what others are doing. So to this end, they have done many things. First of all, what they would do is, they would build something like, so for example, the back end is Huawei. The people who will be supporting that will invariably be Chinese nationals. And these Chinese nationals cannot operate freely in any other country. They have this chain that keeps them back.
So the entire supply chain is well knit and supported by the CCP.
Back end, and they also make sure that none of them stray. So this is a horrible situation, because one of the things that people are finding out in the West is China has police stations in the West where they are actually policing all their citizens, making sure that nothing untoward happens. So things of that nature are also taking place. So China started doing this thing.
This sounds something like the wartime Japan, where there was policing within the society. If somebody would talk against the policies of the the war state, they would be silently pulled off and they would disappear into thin air. So yeah. China is probably taking a leaf from their book.
Absolutely. China is using every which way possible to do this. If I remember correctly, I think 10 to 12 years ago, there was one person who defected from Hong Kong to China. And this person was actually a spy for the CIA, I'm told. These are allegations because nobody will accept it. So that person, when he defected to the PRC, China, he carried with him information about all the CIA agents that were operating within the mainland China. And I'm told to the last person, they were all eliminated. So this is where the first big thing started. This is supposed to have happened in Obama's time. So from there, CIA is now busy trying to rebuild its assets in there. As a matter of fact, there was an interesting aside to this, if you will indulge me on this.
Absolutely.
So what happened was, CIA didn't have any assets. So what does CIA do? If it doesn't have its own people, it usually goes to its friendly country.
Hires them and tries to get secondary information
Yes.
from them. Yeah.
So they used UK.
Okay.
And UK...
MI6.
MI5 or MI6, one of those, whichever one is external, let me put it that way. Right? So they use that one asset of theirs to start tracking one rising Chinese leader who was supposed to be the next...
In line after Z.
Before Xi.
Before Xi, all right.
Xi was a compromise candidate.
Okay, so
That
after
guy's
Hu
name
Jintao, it was... Okay.
Yeah, his name was 𝗏𝗟𝗍𝗍.
Okay.
𝗏𝗥𝗙𝗍𝗍𝗍, 𝗏𝗟𝗍𝗍.
Okay.
Now, what happened was, 𝗏𝗟𝗍𝗍 was becoming very powerful and his wife was also very ambitious.
Okay.
Now, what ended up happening was this MI official suddenly ended up dying.
Okay.
And the fact that this 𝗏𝗟𝗍𝗍's wife ordered the killing, that information was with the police commissioner of that city. Now, this police commissioner took that information and sought refuge in a US consulate. US took all the data, then they let him loose. Horrible. So that guy got, I don't know where he is, but 𝗏𝗟𝗍𝗍 and his wife are spending their time in prison. So there has been this tit for tat fight going on. Now what has happened is, about 6 months to a year ago, you would have known that the rocket force, see, China has, just like India doesn't have a rocket force division. China has a rocket force division. They have the army, they have the navy, they have the air force, they have the marines, and they also have something called as the rocket force division.
The ICBMs and all that stuff.
All that stuff. The reason is they can't go and fight. They can't send ships to go and fight in US mainland. They have to only attack by a rocket. So that was their pride. This is our best technology, this, that. Now what United States did, especially after the COVID phase, was they started leaking out what really the technology of China was, especially the hypersonic, and that the rockets were not really functioning as advertised and so on and so forth. So that became outed in US think tanks. This happened about 8-10 months ago. Then immediately what Xi Jinping did was, the entire top leadership in rocket division, all are gone missing, including the foreign minister, King Gang. King Gang is also gone. He's gone back to Wang Yi. So this has been going back and forth and back and forth. So that was US hitting back at China. Now China is hitting back at US doing this. Not only that, China has been pushing a lot of chemical drugs like meth or fentanyl into the United States through Canada and Mexico. And this has become a huge problem today.
Nuisance for them.
Huge problem. In fact, I would encourage our viewers to watch a web series called Lioness, L-I-O-N, lion, female lion, Lioness. Wonderful program because it tells you what is really happening in terms of what China is trying to do to destabilize the United States.
So, simply put, the past struggle between two big giants, it used to be the USSR and the US. Now it's, of course, the US and China. Where is Russia in all of this, given the war situation with Ukraine? And how are we actually playing any role in that, despite both the country premiers banking heavily on us for being an arbitrator of kind? I don't think we've gone any further in that. But having said that, what is the role of Russia in the future world? Is it going to play second fiddle to China, or is it going to wait for India to become the next big thing in Asia Pacific and align with us? Or does it want to maintain a so-called neutrality where nobody knows what it really wants, and using the wheel of ambiguity, get its things done? So what do you think Russia is up to?
Russia has been caught in a bit of a problem. They are not growing fast enough. They have a large landmass to protect. They have a lot of Islamic republics, Chechnya, for example, where there is a lot of anti-Russia feeling. And they also have problem that on the West, see, in the 1990s, when the USSR broke up, there was a promise made, not written, but a promise made by the then Secretary of State, James Baker, under, I think, Ronald Reagan, or either that or George Bush the first, that after they have a couple countries into NATO, they will no longer add more countries into the NATO. But what has been happening since then is slowly and steadily,
one by one,
everybody has been joining. The bigger the NATO bloc became, the more concerned Russia was, because Russia felt, and there is some substance to that.
Absolutely.
Russia felt when USSR broke up, right? United States did a couple of things. They did very smartly. They made sure that no nuclear weapons fell in a rogue country's hands, including Ukraine. In Ukraine had a big stockpile of nuclear weapons.
Absolutely.
So what the United States did was, they told Russia, look, you sign an agreement with Ukraine that you will never invade Ukraine, and in exchange for that, Ukraine is going to give you all its nuclear assets. And that happened. But yet, Russia broke its word. So this is the primary reason that is given to say that this is why we are fighting on behalf of Ukraine, NATO countries, including United States. Now, as this thing has lingered more and more, longer and longer, I won't go into all the politics of why Russia invaded Ukraine. As it's become longer and longer, it has been a hugely attritional war. Both sides are losing a lot. Ukraine's population is only 40 million, of which it is at least 1 or 2 million, or 1 million definitely are dead. So the army is now mostly digging deep into its, to get the people. And the arms they're buying from everywhere. Even US is not able to keep up for what they want. And 5 million have fled Ukraine. So Ukraine is now a hollow shell of what it used to be.
But do you think there's going to be one stop button after Trump takes charge on 26 or in January?
It's difficult. It's difficult because
it was easy in Afghanistan. All they had to do was pack up and leave without an iota of concern for the country they had invaded for such a long time. So if they desert Ukraine, it's going to be a walkover for Russia. But will the Trump administration do so?
So this is what I'm hearing happening. Okay, let's get back a little bit to the Russia. You said Russia has become weak. Yes, it has become weaker. The reason it has become weaker is that it needed a lot of arms and ammunition to be built in very short time. It had the steel, it had everything, but it didn't have the factories. So China stepped in. China has the latest state-of-the-art manufacturing, no matter what equipment you own. So what they did was, they went into Russia, they looked at it and saw Russia was still using Second World War equipment in their production line. They modernized all of that. So now what Russia is able to do, this is 2023 onwards, they are able to produce their own arms and armaments, and they are able to hold their own, but not for long. So Russia, every day it fights, it's becoming a little bit more weaker, a little bit more weaker. That is why you see Ukraine is also gotten into Russia. It's able to go and hit inside Russia. Recently in a place called Kazan, which is east of Moscow, that's where the BRICS meeting happened. I think it was BRICS that happened, Kazan. Ukraine went and shot using drones. It's a multi-storied building. One particular office, they hit with one drone. And to prove that this was not a fluke, a little bit later, another drone went and hit the same office building.
I got to prove a point that we are precise and we know where to hit and we know where you're hiding. Also, the number of assassinations that Ukraine is able to carry out, all top military targets of the Russians, they're able to take it out without hesitation. So it only goes on to indicate that once a big giant is now probably not as strong as it used to be once.
Not at all, one thing that Russia is able to still manage is because it's very rich in natural resources, and it can do that self-generation on its own.
And this was what happened even during the Second World War, when Germany vastly underestimated the resources of the then Soviet Union. They waited for it till winter, and then when they hit back, I mean, the Luftwaffe, nobody could come to German defenses. So the country is so vast that, the resources is bound to help you one way or the other, both the human as well as the non-human resources. So having said that, let's move a bit towards India and our immediate concerns. Firstly, let's look at the situation in the West in terms of what Taliban is doing to Pakistan. Is it something as Indians we should celebrate? Or is it a bigger matter of concern having Taliban at your doorstep when compared to Pakistan?
It's a double-edged sword, Karthik. I will not mince words here. First, before we go into this in a little bit detail, I want to tell how China attacked India also.
Oh yeah, so we'll keep this for the later.
And we'll come to that in just one second. So in October 2023, if I remember correctly, for about 13 hours, South Bombay had no electricity.
Yes. Yes.
And China said that we are going to bring down your power grid. And then they did it just to show that they can. And it turned out that India had bought a lot of the power generation equipment from China. And much of the software had a backdoor entry that could be controlled from Hong Kong. And it is believed that that's how they could actually bring it down. Now, this is only the thing that they have shown to demonstrate to you. Now, look at all your infrastructure as far as cell phone is concerned. Much of that is again from China.
Chinese makers.
Modi government got sharpened after that, and they have been studiously avoiding buying Chinese equipment. They buy from Russia, from Germany, from US and so on. But the damage is done. You're not going to throw away a cell tower because it was put up at enormous cost. So there are some remnants of all these things available. Okay. That's why India is being very cautiously
but we are being very cautious now, because every tender that comes out in terms of electronic equipments, they make it a point that Chinese equipments or Chinese manufacturers are a taboo. There's a no-go zone already indicated by the central government. But of course, as you said, the damage has already been done. We should be having measures to salvage pride with whatever is left.
Right. So now let's get back to Taliban, the rise of Taliban. It's very difficult to decode who is fighting for whom and who is fighting against whom, who is funding whom. All these things are up, it's very, very confusing. From what little that we have seen on the ground, Taliban is hitting back, or Afghanistan, I should say, is hitting back at Pakistan when Pakistan goes and takes out some of their assets. But is Taliban winning good for India? I'm not so sure, because Taliban is the one that pulled down all these Bamiyan Buddhas. What were they doing? They were just carvings on a mountain. Why did they have to do that? So there is a big religious fanaticism element there. And it is believed, and I don't know if the Indian
Which of the two do you think is going to be the lesser evil?
Have
we come to a point where we are saying, okay, Pakistan is better?
So, if you look at the common man in Afghanistan, they love Indians. Whereas the common man in Pakistan has been indoctrinated so much. I wouldn't say that for sure. Some regions in Pakistan may like India. Baloch will definitely. They are always a moderate community, but they are not big numbers. Your big numbers are in Punjab to a large extent, and a little bit in Sindh. And you see the havoc they have wrought in POK and 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗪. Even there, the people are only now they are realizing that they are being raped and plundered of their resources, and the enjoying is happening at Lahore and in Punjab.
Absolutely.
So this is this problem. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, it's already broken up into 3 or 4 states. It is unmanageable in Balochistan. KPK is not being manageable. POK lose connections there.
It's majorly military managed there. So,
right. Yeah. So my guess is in 5-10 years, the whole Pakistan as a concept will be limited to what is today the Punjab of Pakistan. And everybody else will kind of drift away.
I'm not very sure if that is a good sign for us, because already on the east, we have a lot of tumultuous neighbors. We have Bangladesh there, which is breaking down, and then we have the Pakistan on the west, and we have China on the east. So none of them are going to be good neighbors to us. So if their house is burning, don't you think the fire will catch up with us?
It is possible a little bit, but I'm not too worried about Pakistan as such, Karthik. You know why? Because the anti-Hindu, anti-India hate has been filled up so much in their minds that I think if they have to leave their country, they might migrate towards Iran, not towards to India. Because first of all, Rajasthan is all desert. You will die of dehydration. And the wall is pretty well fenced.
Unlike the eastern borders.
And so I think that will not happen. But what might end up happening is some sort of a quasi-stable region where this, Sindh could become a Sindhudesh, Balochistan.
Just thinking out loud, stopping you here, would that mean Akhand Bharat could come into being?
No.
Never.
It will not. And in fact, it's not good.
Okay.
Right now, India needs to sort out its own internal problems. I'm looking forward to the day when the Indian Muslim and the Indian Christian say, I am proud to be a Bharatiya. See, there are only 2 types of Hindus in Bharat. Those who are Hindus and those who were Hindus. This is not my statement. Chinmayananda said that.
Okay.
Swami Chinmayananda said that. And this is absolutely true. The day they start waking up and saying, whatever the thing that I'm being fed is essentially BS, and this is what my roots are. You are seeing so many people now asking all these difficult questions of their own community. So that I think will happen. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, Bangladesh was actually doing very well for the last 10 years.
On the contrary, I would say we were doing well with Bangladesh for the last 10 years, which is our primary concern. But somehow one gets the impression that we have lost ground somewhere, or we were lackadaisical in our approach somewhere, or we were not as good as we used to be in terms of diplomacy. So where did we lose out, and how did the Chinese and the US control take over in Bangladesh?
India was very sharp up until the re-election of Sheikh Hasina. Once she got elected, I think India took its foot off of the pedal a little bit, saying that now that she has come back,
she would take care of
5
things,
years,
yeah.
she'll take care of it. I think that's where they lost out a little bit.
All right.
See, it's an interesting thing. Many of us don't know this. There's this, I'm an American citizen, but I'm very ashamed of what the ambassador of America in Bangladesh did. His name was Peter Haas. He's Peter Haas, but he's no longer the ambassador. Peter Haas comes from the jeans family that you're using, Levi's. Okay, you know what this rascal did? He knew that this regime change was coming. So it is believed that he has moved all those manufacturing factories that were manufacturing Levi's jeans from Bangladesh to India.
Self-interest before national interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, if you think about every official being like this, they all are trying to make sure that they know which side the bread is better. So this is where I say that India kind of lost the ball a little bit. Another interesting facet that has come out. 4 or 5 weeks before the actual deposition, that is, she got thrown out, it was believed that 6 people from her inner circle were transferring a lot of money into Dubai. Why would they do that?
So there's already some insider information,
Yes.
sensitive information leaked.
Absolutely. And Sheikh Hasina should have known this. So why did she not send out those feelers and say, look, there is something happening here? So there are lots of unasked, unanswered questions. So
it's beyond redemption with respect to Bangladesh as of now. Is that what you say?
no, it's not that way. I think what might happen is once Trump gets
Re-elected?
becomes the president.
Sorry.
So the Trump coming, 2 things might happen. I mean, I will go back to Russia also in just one moment. In Bangladesh, what I'm hearing is that Trump is going to tell Modi, you do whatever you want to do with Bangladesh. I just want St. Martin's Island. So I always joke in my channel that US went to drink a cup of tea, ended up buying the whole store. That is Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
So they'll have to go back to the tea part. Will India allow US to have a base in St. Martin's Island in exchange for a very probably broken up Bangladesh where some areas will be administered by India so that the Hindus don't get messed up too much? That will have to happen. Enclaves which are protected by India.
Which we already had in terms of enclaves. We did exchange enclaves legally.
Yeah, those were geographical sizes that got exchanged.
Yep.
Because there was an Indian thing in
Bangladesh pockets in
pockets.
yeah.
Those things got sorted out. Now the Hindus are also in pockets inside Bangladesh. Some of those things are not contiguous to India's border. So how are you going to? You can't even just say, "I'll take this land. I'll write off this $1 billion loan that Bangladesh owes to Adani. In exchange for that, I'll take this land." That's not going to be possible.
It's going to be a tricky situation then.
So what might happen is some sort of a 3 or 4 pieces of Bangladesh where parts of them will be under Indian control and the others will be involved with the remaining Bangladesh. At the same time, there will be a win-win situation where India might say, okay, I'll make sure, it's like essentially making sure that they don't stray too much. India needs to make sure China can never get back into Bangladesh.
Okay.
See, if you remember, Sheikh Hasina got thrown out. See, there are still people saying that, no, it was not the US that threw Sheikh Hasina out.
It was the Chinese.
It was China which did it because they insulted her. There was a huge delegation that went there. They didn't even give her the time of the day.
They didn't give her the audience and all.
Yeah. So there is still this debate raging on. But my response to that is, it did not matter whether the master was US or China. The guy who did it was ISI.
So at the end of the day, it's always the ISA guys on the ground getting the dirty job done.
Yes.
So imminent balkanization is what you predict. So let's wait until Trump takes charge. Talking about Trump, let's get a bit into the US-India relationship.
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends have been obviously nationalists and so-called Republicans from the US have been very optimistic of a Trump administration, optimistic for India in that sense. But I'm not very sure about that, primarily because a person who puts national interest first will also have protectionist policies in terms of trade. I don't quite well see how that is going to, such a protectionist measure is going to suit India's trade interests. Will that affect the trade basket, and will there be more tax barriers and non-tax barriers that come our way? But I'm sure of one thing, that in terms of international diplomacy, in terms of taking a position for India, we always have the US backing when it comes to the Republicans. But how will the trade relations be affected?
So Trump is going to impose tariffs on India, no doubt about it. It's going to be broad-based. I'll tell you a simple example. Supposing he says that I'm going to impose 25% tariffs on Mexico. He's already said that, right? What is Mexico going to do? It will go to its neighbor, say Guatemala. You don't have 25% tariffs.
So I'll route it through you.
Through you, you'll send it, right? So how far are you going to go with this? So instead, what he might just do is, he would put a baseline.
Blanket ban on.
Blanket baseline tariffs.
Yep.
20% for every country, so that you can't go this, play around. And for special 25% for Mexico and Canada, but you have to prove that you are acting on these drugs. And after some time, we'll review it and we'll lower it again.
But do you think we will get some exemptions like we got with Iran and stuff?
Yeah, free trade, they have this special treaties that they do get signed. My guess is that India doesn't have that much of business at this point of time. We'll have to wait and see how or where China-US relations come. See, for example, Trump surprised everyone by inviting Xi Jinping for his inauguration. And Xi Jinping said no.
So it's snubbed right away. So what about the immigration policy? Again, the demography.
He is very, very pro-merit-based immigration policy, and that will work good for India.
Like for the appointment of Sree Ramakrishnan as the advisor.
Right. So a lot of that stuff is essentially based on advice of one person, Elon Musk. See, we have a rare individual. A person running one company as a CEO,
Absolutely.
that itself taxes you up to your gills.
Absolutely.
This guy is running 4 or 5 companies, all of them successful.
And seemingly does it with some kind of ease and a lot of panache.
Yes, yes. So he has a lot of regard for what Elon Musk has achieved. I mean, I love Tesla. It has a new autopilot feature.
I think you have a Tesla for yourself.
I have Tesla, and I have that autopilot feature where it just basically drives.
Do you think it would work in a place like Chennai?
No, it's going to be difficult. You have to have lanes marked out because there are sensors. It's completely based on sensors. And of course, the batteries are on the floor, on the bottom. So if you have a big pothole, the battery could break, then that could be a big problem. So you'll have to raise the whole car a little bit.
Elon Musk advising Trump, he himself being an immigrant, came from South Africa to Canada, via Canada to US, and did all the hard work, made all the gains. And this is the kind of metal that he wants to see as immigrants.
Yeah.
So that is in a way good to India, don't you think?
Absolutely. See, in United States cannot be anything other than a merit-based society. The reason is, cost of manufacturing something in US is prohibitively expensive. I mean, if you think of some of the products, right, like the one that we are wearing, this thing, it will cost in US 20-30% more. And the people are not willing to pay that much higher costs. So US has to be always going up the food chain so that they have value-added projects. So you can sell Boeing, you can sell Tesla cars, you can sell some high-end ammunition, some high-end rocket. How many of them are going to sell? One F-35 costs like $20 million or something. I'm just throwing a number here. It costs $1 million. But how many F-35s can a country
And you
afford?
have also this limitation to the number of countries that you can sell to when it comes to technology transfer.
Yes.
So the niche products have the quantitative disadvantage.
Right.
But China has the quantitative advantage.
So somewhere they have to try and balance it out. US does not have the broad-based industry that it used to have 10, 15 years ago, because many of them, it's just like water. Water flows from a higher level to a lower level. That's how much of the industry navigated towards China. But having seen the Chinese intentions and actions, now people are saying, wait a minute, some things we cannot afford to put them in China. They have to be with us. Semiconductor is the one big shining example that I am sure is going to decimate China. They don't realize how bad it's going to be. They are still thinking that they can go and invade Taiwan and therefore they can get their TSMC and then they can continue manufacturing. It's not just about manufacturing chips. You need a lot of specialized skills. I worked in the semiconductor industry for 3 years. This is not chip making. This is the industry that helps you make tools to make chips.
All right.
There's something called ASML, and these are all even higher end of technology. You're talking about neutrons, atoms, at that level you're dealing with things. So all of that stuff has been taken back out of China into either United States or in Germany or Japan or Taiwan, and some may even come to India. I'm hearing that in Meghalaya we have a semiconductor fab. The reason it has to be in Meghalaya is because of water. You need a lot of clean water. And that's one place that you can get it without worrying too much. Although the workforce for that kind of a requirement might be in Bengaluru. You will start seeing these flights going Shillong to Bengaluru every day.
At least that way we'll have the mainland connected with the Seven Sisters.
Yes.
So that was a very fruitful discussion with you. A lot of insights into a number of things. And whether or not the World War III happens in the way we perceive it to be, I'm sure we have to be abreast about all these happenings across the globe. Because in a globalized world, whatever happens elsewhere has its effect, even in India. So thanks for keeping our citizens informed, and please keep joining us, if not physically, at least virtually. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Karthik. Your progress has been breathtaking. Those of you who don't know, Karthik has a IB news channel now in Tamil that has already crossed 500,000 and it's probably going very close to 600,000. He has his 𝗟𝗡𝗏𝗏, which is also in the same range. So you're going places, plus he's very active in the BJP party and very, very active person. If you want to emulate someone, don't look at the film actors, look at Karthik Gopinath. He's a good role model for the youth of Tamil Nadu as well as India. Thank you so much, Karthik.
Thank you, sir. You were generous. Jai Hind.